Hey, what's up, y'all? We're back. It's me, Jacob.
Anthony, back again. Week 3.
Week 3. It was a rough week too, but we're bouncing back. The Great American Football with the Great American Youth is back. He was round 2, baby. Here we go.
All right, so I guess before we dive into the fantasy football, we'll start with regular season football recap. A few things that impacted our teams pretty heavily that were the major storylines for the league this week. I guess we'll start with at the top, Trey Lance. I think it was a fractured ankle.
I think so.
Had
But that thing's
surgery.
hurt. His ankle.
Yeah, so had multiple surgeries earlier this week. Seems like he's prayers though. I think he's fine. He'll make full recovery. But unfortunate injury for him. My backup QB, so fully relying on Kirk Cousins now. Gonna have to, probably go out and get another QB in waivers, but
kind of risky.
Yeah, I know it's not looking good for the 49ers. Just losing Trey Lance was big for them. And then in the bottom left, my wide receiver 1, Mike Evans, typical against the Saints, of course, getting into a fight, just absolutely obliterating Marshawn Lattimore, getting ejected from the game.
It was fun to watch.
Fun to watch. I mean, I love that. I wasn't expecting to see a fight on Sunday. That wasn't what I came to watch, but I got it. It was fun until I realized that, my fantasy team had lost my wide receiver 1 and was probably going to lose it for another week. So now Mike Evans is out for me. I guess I just gave away what I'm going to be doing for this week by saying that, but yeah, unfortunate, just crazy situation.
Yeah,
I frustrated, boiled over. Mike Evans has done this, did it again. Not too surprising, really.
And then, so final story of the week. Obviously, everyone saw this. Dolphins beating the Ravens. First of all, what a game. They came back from, I think, 28-3, which, first of all, to the Falcons, that goes back to them.
Shout out.
Shout out to the Falcons. But yeah, dude, Tua had a historic day, 6 touchdowns. I think 2 to Tyreek, 2 to Waddle. They both had over 150 yards. I think it's the first time in history where 2 receivers had over 150 yards, over 10 catches, and 2 touchdowns. And against the Ravens too, a good team too. It's kind of scary. I think the Bills have a tiny bit of competition, but still the Bills division,
Yeah, so I think it's the Bills.
The Bills conference. I'm not gonna lie. Maybe the Chiefs.
Yeah, so I think it's the way the Bills have been. I don't know. I feel like it's, if I had to bet on a team to win the Super Bowl right now, I'd say the Bills. But
you got it.
The Dolphins' offense, I think, clearly showed this week that they can sling it with the best of them. That, I think, the potential of Waddle and Hill, we saw the full extent of that last week. And if they can, there's no telling how consistent that is. If Tua gets better, really excited for this weekend to see how that game goes.
This week against the Bills, it'll be a good game. Yeah, so let's get into the upset of the week. We got the obvious upset of the week. We had the Jets over the Browns. It was actually 31-30. I think our slide shows a little bit wrong there. But dude, Browns had it. I think they're up 10 or something they're up a touchdown or something like that. And Nick Chubb runs it in the end zone when the Jets had no timeouts left. If he falls to the ground, that's game. But he goes in, helps out your fantasy team if you have Chubb.
He was just trying to be dirty. He started himself. He needed the extra touch.
Yeah, exactly. He definitely plays fantasy. Definitely started himself. But you know what? He let his team sell. Obviously, he had a great game, but Jets came back. Joe Flacco didn't lose a touch.
Elite.
Super Bowl champion that he is today. But yeah, it's blowout of the week.
And yeah, the blowout of the week, Indianapolis. Indiana is whatever. Indianapolis, the Colts, garbage this week. The Jags looking like a real football team. Their defense shut out the Colts, held Jonathan Taylor to pretty much an ineffective game. Granted, the Colts' top receiver was, let me not talk down on the Colts' top receiver just yet, but the Colts depleted offense, but still Matt Ryan was ineffective. Jonathan Taylor was ineffective, and the Jaguars were able to run them over 24-0. great game. And the Jaguars, I think going forward, definitely a team to look out for. I don't know if I don't see them really as a playoff team this year, but they have the pieces. They're a good team. They're a young team. And I think last year was like a wash. I don't think last year was really a true gauge of how good they are. This year, we're starting to see some of the talent and promise that this team actually has. So
also, Matt Ryan may or may not be washed. Yeah,
he's washed. It's done.
I think he's done. But look, I'll give him one chance.
Colts lost. That
1-1. Who would have thought? That's crazy. Let's get into the Commanders check-in here.
Yeah, so we're talking about losing teams. Unfortunately, the Commanders lost as well. Amon-Ra St. Brown went ham. It was a good game. I mean, entertaining, back and forth. If you were neutral,
not a good start for us.
Sure, you enjoyed watching, but yeah, I would say it
doesn't start better. I think
it's interesting this season that it was just, you think 2 years ago, Chase Young's rookie year was the defense that was like so touted, and that was what this team was built on. And
how we made the playoffs
last season took a drop off. Last season, obviously not the same. Chase Young got hurt, just inconsistency. But this year, Carson Wentz and it's the offense that's been far more explosive and that's really carried the team up until this point. And if the defense could just match even some of what it was 2 years ago, we're definitely beating the Lions, and I think we're winning a lot more games over the course of this season. So week 2 only, but I think or week 3. But
it's a reality check.
I think this game
woke us up. We're not a contender, obviously. We're not the worst team in the league. I think we're gonna end up third, maybe best case scenario, second in the NFC East. I would say third at the rate the Giants are playing. Should be third. I would be happy with third, just not last. Cowboys without Dak. Yeah. All right. So I believe we have a special guest joining us now, right, Anthony?
Yeah, I said we got someone joining the room. Let's see if it'll.
Matt Cohen.
Oh, it's connecting.
Oh.
The man.
The myth, the legend.
Oh.
Matt, can you hear us? You got to turn your mic on and camera.
There we go. I'm not sure what was going on there. Hello.
How are you? There we go.
Good. How about you, man?
Don't know what happened there. Sorry about that. Thanks for having me on the show.
Good. Of course.
Top journalist. Oh.
This is Matt Cohen. If you haven't met him. So this is, there should be a photo of him in there in the middle, but it's not really loud.
Yeah, I was saying, I don't know what happened to the picture of that.
That's fine. It was a really embarrassing photo. So it
gets his face instead. You probably didn't watch the photo.
This is totally content with me. I have no complaints.
All right.
So yeah, Matt, do you want to give a little background about yourself, maybe, for a minute?
Sure. So I have met everyone in this league. We've been going to school together since like 6th grade. I've known all these people for far too long, and but we started. I guess you guys have heard about the league in the past in the last episode, but I guess I'm one of the initial league members. Never had a lot of success in the league. There's kind of a bit that I have that I always lead the league in scoring, and I never make the playoffs, and I don't know how that happens.
True. It always happens. And as you can see, there's a chart showing that. So.
And like the chart here on the slide isn't even the full scope of it all. It's really sad.
Yeah, I would say this isn't representative of the entire length of the league. You made the playoffs a bit recently. You've done well, but the all-time record still losing.
I like to think that I'm like the Falcon of this league.
Good comparison. Yeah, so that's your team there on the right. Do you want to kind of go through it? Give a little background, like who you picked first?
Yeah,
just everything.
So I picked 9th in the draft, and I picked Jamar Chase, fell down to 9th, and at that point that was easy. I had to take him. I then made what had to be the most controversial pick of the draft with my second pick.
Probably the best pick of the draft.
Thank you for that pick, because I got Debo because of it.
So see, yes and no. So I sat there thinking. So my choice was Mark Andrews for Debo Samuel. I guess I could have picked a running back. I forget who was there. And I thought, well, you know what? I can sit here and I can get another wide receiver later. I have Jamar Chase, I have my wide receiver 1, but let's be honest, there's like 2 good tight ends. And I can get one of them right now. I'm not going to pick again for another 20 picks. If I don't take Mark Andrews or Travis Kelce right now, I'm not getting them.
You're not getting a tight end. That's a good point.
And my thought was, if you ended up with, and I'm making it up here, let's say like, I don't know, Gerald Everett or whatever. Like he's not owned in our league, but like hypothetically, and like you have him, and you're begging on him to get a touchdown. And if he doesn't, you're getting 2 points. And if he does score a touchdown, maybe you're getting 9, 10.
9, yeah.
Lucky. And if I felt like, well, with Mark Andrews, I'm getting 7 or 8 every week, pretty sure thing. And maybe I get 20. Who knows? Mostly because at that point, I think he compared to, and I didn't really know what to think of Kelce, given that the Chiefs' offense was going to be a little restructured this year without Tyreek Hill. So I figured Andrews was the safe bet. He is the wide receiver 1 at Baltimore, effectively. He's going to catch, and we're in a PPR league. And through 2 weeks, I'm happy with it. Especially because I think I ended up doing well with my other wide receivers. I've had the issue now of I have 4 startable wide receivers. I obviously can only play 3 of them, which has become an issue every week. The flip side of that, I have 0 running backs, and people always joke about like, don't do the the 0 running backs draft strategy, that it never works out for you. And I did that. And like Javonte Williams is solid. I wish they would stop giving the ball to Melvin Gordon, because Melvin Gordon's not, he's not at your alma mater, Jacob, anymore.
On the way out.
It's not the same. Or even with the Chargers. Then I was kind of hoping that Breece Hall would be good, and he hasn't been bad, but like 2 weeks, it's kind of hard to start him with much confidence right now. So I have Kareem Hunt as a current running back 2. Not usually a huge fan of drafting people with such criminal histories as good. But I was kind of stuck, and so I've been starting Kareem Hunt. Week 1, the Browns have been super weird. So week 1, Kareem Hunt had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, so he did great.
Yeah, and Nick Chubb had nothing around the goal line. And then in week 2, it was the complete opposite. And I think Nick Chubb scored 3 times. Kareem Hunt scored nothing. And so it's a weird offense. And probably week to week, it's going to be like that. I guess in a PPR league, Hunt's going to get you some catches. I would like to see if I can upgrade there, if there's anything I'm looking at. And I think, I kind of lucked into having 4 really good wide receivers, even though both of AJ Brown and Jamar Chase kind of didn't play super well this past week. That's a super quick team rundown. Oh, important also, I'm blanking on. I drafted Dak. So I was the
yeah. So I'd say the IR is cut out there, but
yeah, I was the poor soul that had to make the Dak Prescott replacement. And Stafford's as good as I'm going to get for a replacement. I saw someone dropped, I forget who it was, but someone dropped Tom Brady last week. I thought about it. I really thought about it. And
His schedule's tough. That's the only thing.
Yeah, that was exactly.
And no receivers there.
Right, and he's still, he's Tom Brady, but
get it done.
Who would you want on your NFL team? Tom Brady over Matt Stafford. Not even thinking twice about it. Who do you want in fantasy? Probably Matt Stafford right now. Are the options? Yeah, and the options are pretty slim. Like Derek Carr was an option, which it really. And we talk about this in the draft, and you guys have talked about this on the show too. But this year was really top heavy, and it wasn't a lot.
Yeah, there was just not real depth this year. I think their receiver is kind of always what it is. I think they're good young receivers for PPR. There are always some guys who are going to just 1, 2 guys on every team who are going to get a lot of targets, depending on the offense, maybe 3. Running back, the whole running back by committee trend has just ruined fantasy. I think there's so many teams that don't have a true workhorse number 1 that it makes running back a really invaluable position. Unless you have one of the running back, I mean, not the same as tight end, but more similar to tight end in terms of the drop off. I think there's a top group, definitely a bigger group tight end that is 2, 3 players, but running back, there's a top 10, 15 really. And then after that, it's if that, and
Oh.
then the rest is all guys who are backups who are really touchdown dependent or game script dependent. So it's
Hit or miss.
been a
The
weird
Jamal
year.
Williams of the league, who I have on my team. Yeah, so want to get into let's get in the recap for week 2.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to get into the recap for week 2?
I really
Yeah.
don't want to get into it. Like, as you can see, 60-point loss. Doesn't get much worse than that. Matt, do you want to talk about how your team played? Obviously, I don't really want to talk about how my team played.
You know, as I've always said, in that this league, whoever talks trash is not typically one to succeed later on in the league. It's been shown time and time again. However, I benched Jalen Waddle this week, and I still won by 60. So not to go that far down the road, but no, I'm kidding. That was mean. But I had about as good a week as you could ask for. Like, scored 134. I forget what I got in total between Jamar Chase and AJ Brown, but it was not a lot. I think it was like maybe 15, 16 total.
Yeah, it wasn't too much.
Didn't get much.
Yeah, so one of the
like, I just think I got lucky that, you know, Amon-Ra St. Brown went off, Mark Andrews went off, Matt Stafford had a better game than he was projected for, barely. Like, I mean, it was a good game, but you know, about what you could, like 18.8 points for Stafford is about all I could ask for. It probably more than I could ask for. The Rams defense helped me out. I have the Saints defense,
really well.
and the Saints defense did better than I was expecting them to do. But I didn't feel comfortable starting them against the Bucs, so I picked up the Rams. I still have the Rams in my lineup right now. I haven't changed it, but I'm planning on probably dropping them back up, putting the Saints back in. And so I think I just got lucky that all of the, like, on the week that my top players, with the exception of Mark Andrews, probably weren't at their best, that other people like Amon-Ra St. Brown scored 35 points.
Yeah, so I guess we can see some of the other results across the league. I unfortunately took a pretty big loss as well. We'll get into it a bit more on a few slides, but yeah, just not a good week for me. Nick Chubb did great. Kirk did great. You know, I think my team did well, you know, similar to last week, but, you know, went up against Tyreek, Aaron Jones, Herbert, just didn't have enough firepower in my team to win this week. Adwin picking up a win this week against Joel. Joel just underperforming.
First win in the league. Congrats, Adwin.
Yeah, congrats, Adwin. You finally made it. You know, Joel had to give you an easy one. You know, we'll see if you can win again next week. You'll try.
He's always competing, I feel like.
Yeah, so Sammy, big win against Ian, another like blowout win. Not really any competitive games this week in our league. Lamar, Diggs, and Cup, like that just kind of explains itself. I mean, any given week that could just end the matchup for you, and this week
100 every week.
Clearly did.
So we talked about the Dak injury, and I bring this up now because it was a trade I actually ended up rejecting. Sammy offered me Lamar Jackson, and I thought about it. Sammy offered me it was Lamar and Robert Woods for AJ Brown, and I really thought hard about it. The reason why I ended
Ravens fan.
you know, in hindsight, Lamar scored 42 points. Like, you know, it wouldn't have mattered this week, but I really thought about it because it was, you know, it's Matt Stafford versus Lamar. Obviously, I'd rather Lamar. Ended up turning it down. I didn't feel comfortable having my receivers go from Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, and one of Amon-Ra St. Brown or Jalen Waddle to being both St. Brown and Jalen Waddle and then Jamar Chase. And because I was never going to start Robert Woods. So I was effectively trading AJ Brown for a quarterback, which is not the worst trade.
Yeah.
But there are more quarterbacks I felt like than receivers. So I ended up rejecting that trade. Like, it was a good offer. I had no problem.
Very fair trade, I will say.
I really thought about it. I just realized I'd rather take the safer. I'd rather have the worst quarterback than the worst receiver.
Fair.
I mean, ultimately, you won by 60 points, so I think
right.
You know,
It doesn't matter.
there was no.
Sammy,
I think you're the winner at the end of the day.
Yes,
so.
But Sammy now has. I had the chance to break up Lamar, Diggs, and Cuff, which I didn't do. And it's not going to happen again.
You've been helping us out, but
exactly
it's about that. It's about your own team, so obviously. Let's take a look at the standings and
Quick look at the standings, updated standings and look of them. Gold, Sammy is in first place, currently 2-0, undefeated, most points scored as well. Tiebreak by 1 point over
Second
Matt
most
L.
points in the league, actually.
Or well, first, like that's his tiebreak for being first.
Gotcha.
Matt L. second place, but behind by 1 point. Ian with the most points in the league, that's the green there, 263, and Jacob, all red,
Very
0-2,
down bad.
least points scored, 23% playoff percentage.
Not looking good.
I mean, they said that you were going to be last to start the season.
They might have been right.
It looks pretty accurate so far. I mean,
Yeah, we didn't
can't
really take
argue.
a good look at the preseason projections, but Matt, you were projected third, which is the highest out of all of us.
I'm currently, I checked it just before we got on the podcast, and it's currently listing me as finishing 8th, but also 60% to make the playoff. So that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I would say the playoff percentages and the preseason stuff is not really aligning at all.
I've like all like the IBM stuff that ESPN has is super cool, but I think we very quickly through 2 weeks or even looking at this and like it's fun to look at. Like it's a good talking point, but like especially with the preseason standings, because you never know what could happen. Like Dak, maybe So I guess that's true with fantasy or real life, but it's just super interesting kind of seeing how that's played out even within 2 weeks.
Definitely.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, but just cool things to keep track of. Definitely things we'll continue to keep track of. I mean, I think at you can see kind of at the top and the middle. I mean, generally like the good team, like the top half and bottom are like generally aligned. But I mean, clearly like the worst. I mean, got the worst team right so far, but the rest is generally the bottom half teams, kind of bottom half. Alex, I guess, a little bit lower, and then I'm 1-1. But we're also in week 2,
right?
Very early in the season.
It's
and I guess
early enough that you're getting to the point where I was talking about, people talking trash too early, and I wonder who that
exactly.
Matt Levin.
I'll say we'll get into. So speaking of, we'll get into a little bit of a deeper dive into my matchup this week. I was gonna include a screenshot of it, but I decided not to. Matt Levin did beat me pretty handily this week. It was a close matchup up until about when Tyreek decided to score 2 touchdowns for a combined, 120, probably 100 plus yards. So 120-ish around their yards in 5 minutes. So blew up the matchup entirely. Ended up losing because of that. Matt shortly thereafter sent me a text bragging about his victory, bragging about what Tyreek did to me.
I hate that.
That will come back to bite him.
But it always does.
It's okay. It's week 2. I'm not too concerned. The team did okay. Generally, I'm happy with how my team did. Mike Evans, talked about him earlier, got kicked out of the game. Kind of is what it is. That's just like a crapshoot. He's going to be suspended for next week. Not feeling too good about that. Kirk Cousins.
Mike Thomas, though.
Yeah, so the bench receiver, I said Dotson, Thomas did well. Renfro was a little bit of a rebound. In terms of my other starters, Christian Kirk continued to deliver on what I've kind of been expecting of him. So really happy with that pick. Kyle Pitts, I don't know what's up with him. That's kind of going to have to be addressed. He just isn't.
Around, I'm sure.
I think Drake London is kind of feeling like the number 1 target in that offense to me. And obviously, it's going to take some time. Pitts will get targets, but that pick was a bit more. I was expecting more out of that pick. In my head, I was feeling like Kyle Pitts could have taken the step to being, one of those top difference-making tight ends. And so far this season, he's just been regular. So
it's stunning to me that Kyle Pitts still has not scored a touchdown in the United States. And it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that was the one thing. Well, I felt like for PPR though, especially despite his, not really the touchdown, he's not scoring touchdowns the way you think he would, getting a lot of targets. He was the number 1 receiver, especially with no Calvin Ridley. He's the top guy in that offense last season. This year, Calvin Ridley, obviously, free my boy. DraftKings is fun. He didn't do anything wrong, but
He should be
with
allowed.
him out again this year, I figured that Pitts being in that offense for a year, being there, would be the number one guy. Just hasn't been there so far. But other than that, team's okay. Chubb went off this week. Definitely need Jonathan Taylor to rebound. But other than that, just stay on the course. Nothing to might be looking to make a trade this week. Won't say too much more, but might be looking to make a trade. But other than that, nothing too crazy going on with my team. And I guess I'll let you guys. It's enough from me. I'll let you guys. We have Matt on. I'll let him, get his talk off. Go.
I mean, we talked about the matchup a bit. I'll touch on my team a little bit. A lot of people underperformed. Pretty much everybody underperformed except for I guess Debo, who still did below his average. Henderson below his average. I think everyone did below their average. Oh, Zach Ertz, the only guy that did better than his projection. Like, I really don't know what I'm doing wrong. Like, I'm putting who I think is the best guys in. Obviously Tony Pollard was a mistake. I should have put him in. Terry McLaurin. Like, you couldn't have known, especially against the Bengals in a game without Dak. You couldn't have expected Pollard to go off there. I'm gonna have Godwin back soon. Ideally next week. Hopkins will be back soon. That'll help. But yeah, just across the board, nobody did well, especially Russell Wilson. 11 points. He needs to turn that around. Or else someone needs to start looking for another quarterback. Matt, do you want to talk about your team? I'm not happy about my team.
I mean, Russell Wilson had it's been opposite of what he did. He's normally like the first 6 weeks, the best fantasy player on the face of the planet. The total opposite of that.
And then he drops off, but
it's
no.
And it's not as a, and your team just, unfortunately just a down week. It's not like you with the exception of Tony Pollard, like you said, who knows? You didn't really have a case where you started the wrong person per se. There's no one. This was one of those weeks.
And even if I did start McLaurin and Pollard, I'm still losing by what? Still 50, 40?
Right. I mean, hey, and it could have been worse if I played Jalen Waddle. No, I'm kidding.
I
won't do that.
Dude, that would have been bad. Thank God you did.
The Ravens secondary really had the time of their life over the weekend. So I guess then kind of only other points I didn't really touch on with my team. George Pickens has not been what I was expecting him to be at. I'm not anywhere near playing George Pickens, but I figured he'd be doing having a little more production than he's had so far. Yeah. Chris Olave has been kind of solid through 2 weeks. Again, not a guy I'm playing anytime soon, but just an interesting bench piece. I have a lot of with the exception of Jalen Waddle and Breece Hall, there's not really a lot of guys on my bench that I would actually play. I drafted Kenneth Walker with the thought of we all know Rashad Penny's going to get hurt at some point, and then I don't know.
Yeah, so that's a safe assumption.
Right, and Kenneth Walker's really, really good, and I think he's going to be the long-term starter there anyway. If this was a dynasty league, I would have drafted Kenneth Walker really high.
Yeah.
And Isaiah Pacheco, I'm probably going to drop. I thought he was going to be the top backup there. He hasn't been.
That's kind of a similar principle there, though. I guess to Penny in Seattle. Can you count on Edwards-Helaire to be healthy all season long?
No, I think they'd go Jerick McKinnon at that point anyway. And
McKinnon is there, but yeah, I was saying McKinnon is above him in the depth chart. But still, Pacheco, he did well in the chances he got earlier this season.
The first game was really well.
Yeah, I would say he did well.
He's really talented. I also think he too. I think he's the long-term guy there. I don't think Clyde Edwards-Helaire has proven himself to be the long-term guy. The only real player that I'm super interested in long-term is Breece Hall, because I would like to be able to start him over Kareem Hunt, but I just can't justify that.
Dependable. He's not dependable yet.
Yeah.
I think you give him a week or two, he can maybe take it over, but it seems like they're going to do a committee for the season, if I had to guess now. But I never know, an injury, whatever happens, they take Carter out. I don't know.
It's amazing how much the league has changed over the years. A bell cow running back is just not a thing that exists anymore.
No.
Bar unless you have an extraordinary circumstance, but Javonte Williams is never going to be a bell cow running back. Breece Hall never will be. You're going to have Jonathan Taylor, Dalvin Cook. Christian McCaffrey he just gets hurt all the time.
Yeah.
Najee Harris could be, and you're kind of running out of. I mean,
Loud
Derrick
end.
Henry, you're kind of running out of guys pretty quick there. It's
Definitely.
it's such a different league now. Anyway, I digress. I had probably the best week I'm going to have all season. I know I'm 134 again. I guess now my biggest question going forward is kind of how to play my flex spot between Waddle and Amon-Ra St. Brown each week.
That's gonna be tough.
I mean, definitely for PPR, that was my last season. That was my wide receiver duo that got me to the championship. I had Amon-Ra St. Brown and Waddle. For PPR, those guys are just going to get the target for sure. Like, I think the way your team, I had Jamar Chase too. You had like my whole receiver.
I thought would work, and I drafted.
You literally drafted the championship winning team, receiver core.
I didn't really intend to do that. I guess I would like to take advantage of that via a trade, but then of course the moment I make a trade, someone will get hurt. So that's just how this always works.
Yeah, so it's a weird point in the season where like it's definitely, you know, just that 1-1, like feeling antsy, want to make a trade, like things I want to change about my team, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, you don't want to give someone up and then have an injury happen, or, you know, so it's too early in the season to feel comfortable making significant moves like that.
If there's any fantasy, it's patience and relaxed. The worst thing to do is panic because it never works.
Definitely. Yeah, let's take a look at the next matchups, right?
Yeah, I'll say this is, well, I guess we're gonna,
right.
Well, no, so I guess we're gonna, oh yeah, we have the matchup breakers now.
Yeah.
So for this week, yeah, I'll say go through this. This week was pretty straightforward. Tyreek brutalized me. You saw it earlier. Talked about it. The touchdowns. He got them super quick, long range. Shout out to the Dolphins offense for doing what they did, but Tyreek, I did not appreciate what he did to my matchup. Sent me back to 1-1. Gave Matt the confidence to send me a text like that. I don't know just to put him in that state of mind. I'm really disappointed in Tyreek. And
actually, that was against the Ravens too, which is his team. Like
exactly, that was even more confusing. It was like you do understand that you.
Like,
this was to me right after he scored them too. Like it was mad fast. Like he was waiting.
This was the case where Tyreek Hill was both a fantasy and a real life matchup breaker. It's not like you know, and he still did the unbelievable.
And then my matchup breaker, a guy I thought would honestly go off this week against the Chargers, or last week against the Chargers. He got targeted like 3 times for like 10 total yards. It was Juju Smith. So I think I'm putting him on the bench this week. I'm just done playing that game with him right now.
As a noted podcast listener, I would say that there was a certain podcast host that said
advocated for playing him.
Plays of the week. I mean, I don't know who said that, but I just
you gotta call it out. It was me, and I regret that. This week I have a better pick for y'all. So stay tuned. I'll get that to you. As for now, I want to say thank you for joining the show. We just have like one last question for you. If you are going to make a move, like who are you trying to acquire? Otherwise, like what kind of free agent are you going after this week on the waivers?
I am currently picking up no one on the waivers.
No one.
No one I want. I don't need anything at the moment. I didn't have any injuries this week or anything to kind of worry about. I guess my biggest hole is probably at running back. As I was mentioning earlier, like if I could use one of my wide receivers to kind of work my way into getting a better running back, I'd think about it, but it'd have to be the right offer to kind of part with it because it is a nice luxury to have, especially if there is an injury. But luxury is also good to use for trade. So it's balancing whatever the right offer is, I guess.
Definitely. Well, I hope you get a running back, and I wish you best of luck the rest of your season. Hopefully, we can have you on later in the year.
This is the year. It's finally happening. I'm due.
For you. All right. Thanks for joining, Matt. We'll
Thanks
talk
for
to you
having
later.
me.
Yeah, of course. All right. Should we take a look at next week? All right. So week 3 matchups. I take on Ian this week, who is 1-1, I believe.
Yes.
I'm 0-2, as you guys all know. I have a 43% chance with the current roster that's in there. Obviously,
Yes, I kind of looking at 40, kind of looking at 0-3, honestly.
yeah, it's not looking good right now. I think my team will turn around. I think they need to start at least hitting their projections. That would be a good goal for this week. Maybe hit 100 points. I'd be very happy with
Triple
that.
digits?
Dude, that'd be massive. I really don't know who to start between the Akers Henderson situation. It's still like the situation got worse this week. Russ, I don't want to play him, but I don't have any other options right now. Najee against Cleveland. I don't love that matchup, but I need to play him. He was my first round pick. Debo I like. Debo is going up against Denver. He's always doing well. Terry against the Eagles. I didn't play him last week. He proved me wrong. He got some targets playing him this week. Ertz did surprisingly well. Only got
good.
He beat his projection. He's been solid. I'm playing Tony Pollard, as you guys all see. I trust him. I think the only possible switch I'll make is if Godwin plays and he's not on like a pitch count or anything. I think I might put him in for McLaurin, which I know that goes against what I just said, but he might be the only receiver there that week, and he's gonna get fed. Then I got Steelers DN and Young Ho Koo, who I'll talk about in a little bit.
All right, so we'll get into my matchup. I'm going up against the man we just had on, Matt C.
Yeah, Cohen.
Pretty even matchup, 51% to 49. I'm projected for 108.7. He's projected for 109.3. Michael Thomas in the starting lineup for Mike Evans. He went off again this past weekend, gave me the confidence I think I need to start him. And with Mike Evans being out, kind of don't have a choice. So it's going to be Michael Thomas. We're going to see how he does. Still going to run with Antonio Gibson, Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, just the same lineup, same defense as well, and kicker. Feeling good about the team. Really like Christian Kirk. I like the matchup with Cousins against Detroit. It seems like, I'm just hoping that's a good game for Justin Jefferson. It seems like they've had some shootouts, so I'm hoping that they can get into another one here with Minneapolis. And just feeling good. But considering some trades, I have, I think really my surplus at the moment is running back. While Antonio Gibson isn't going to be what he is the whole season, I think that is really my biggest if, the fact that Brian Robinson is going to come back and he's going to take away from Antonio Gibson's workload when he does.
Yeah.
But I have Taylor, Chubb, Montgomery. I have three real starting running backs. So I think using one of those to maybe, get myself maybe a bit more consistency at receiver, maybe upgrade at QB, maybe use Kyle Pitts to try to get an upgrade at a position as well. I don't know. I think I have the pieces that I need to make a move. Definitely. But, this team as of right now, it's a solid team. My preseason projection was 9th. It's a solid team. I think I'm better than 9th. But it's I don't know. This team is not. I don't think this is a championship team right now. I think this team definitely has some room to grow, room to get better.
That's
not sure if I'll make a trade
for.
this week. Yeah, so that's what it's all about. I don't know if it'll be this week or next, but definitely the next few weeks going to be looking to make a trade.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's look at those sell high candidates for this week. We have the first guy being Rashad Bateman. He's been a big play guy. 2 big play touchdowns. He got like 150-yarder, one in week 2, and then like another long one in week 1. I don't remember the exact stats, but like he had like 2 or 3 catches besides that, something like that in both games. I mean, he was averaging 15 fantasy points in 2 games, which is solid.
They're doing well.
I don't know if he keeps that up. I think it's a
very
good
touchdown dependent.
If you have him, I'd say see what you get for him at the very least. And Anthony, you want to go on the second guy we got?
Yeah, say James Robinson. I think he's honestly a solid. He's been all right. Starting clearly, I think there was kind of an idea that there was going to be, kind of a timeshare in that backfield between him and Etienne. Robinson has had more of the carries and touches up until this point. Definitely. But, even though it's a new, regime in there in terms of the coaching staff, Etienne was a first-round pick. I do think he's more talented than James Robinson, ultimately, a bit more versatile. Just offers a bit more for that offense. There's definitely room for both of them in that team. But I think over the course of this season, you're going to see, ETN start to get more involved. He coming off of being hurt all of last year. This is effectively his rookie year. I think, as ETN gets more involved, gets more comfortable, I think we're going to start to see kind of the timeshare in that backfield kind of even out a bit more and maybe even go to ETN getting more carries and touches over James Robinson. So it's something to look out for, but Robinson's done well to start off with. I think you could definitely, sell him now while his value is still high and while he's still in the position he is now as the number one back for the next few weeks.
Definitely.
And I guess from here, we'll go into our buy low candidates. Our first one is someone on your team, Dak Ertz.
Yep.
We were just talking about tight ends earlier, talking about tight ends with Matt as well. Tight end is an interesting position in fantasy. If you don't have one of those top guys, especially, I guess, if you're not drafting one of those top guys, you're talking about the Kelsey, the Mark Andrews. I hoped it would be Kyle Pitts, but clearly not. Waller, I guess, as well is kind of up there. But if you don't have one of those four, the rest of it is kind of a crapshoot. There's no real telling how that's going to go. Ertz, though, so far through 2 weeks,
he's
been playing like one of those top tight ends. And if you can get that type of value for someone for, a low trade, or if he's still available in your league, it's 100% worth it. Last season, I picked up Dawson Knox off waivers, and I drafted Kittle, but I had Knox off waivers when Kittle was hurt. Started Knox, and that really carried my team. Having an above average tight end, I think, is super important. And if you have that, Ertz is the guy who can give that to you and, can really push your team to the next level. So something to consider, someone to consider going in on.
Yeah, my buy low candidate, I got Brandon Ayuk. Obviously I got Debo on my team, so this isn't really something for me, but I think it's a great idea to buy him now or try to trade for him now. Obviously Garoppolo's back. I think the offense was kind of a bit more run based when they had Trey Lance in there. Obviously there's weather situations in both the games, but he just didn't seem to favor Ayuk as much. It seemed like Juwan Jennings was getting a ton of targets, and I mean obviously Debo was, but I don't know. Like it seems like Ayuk should be back to his normal self with Garoppolo there. And Ayuk was a top guy last year. He was top maybe 30, 20 with Garoppolo.
Had a good season.
Yeah, he was solid. I think this is a guy you can steal right now at a low price. And it's definitely worth the value. So maybe try to get him in your league this week, next week, as soon as you can. Go for it. So let's go on our waiver wire pickups for this week. I know I'm a Commanders fan, and I know this might seem biased, but I gotta pick up Carson Wentz. You guys saw Russell Wilson. He's
Commander Carson.
Russell Wilson's not getting it done. I mean, they're playing a San Francisco defense that's been solid. Don't want to play him. I really don't. I'd rather go with Carson Wentz in a revenge game against Philly. Like, I think that's. I mean, even if the Eagles blow us out, he'll get garbage time points. So he should get a solid 15 points at least, I'd expect. Should be high scoring. I think it's a good pickup for this week, especially since he's the 4th ranked QB in our league and he's on waivers. I'm a Commanders fan. I have no problem picking him up. So I definitely think he's a good pickup for this week. He might throw a couple interceptions, but it should be fine. Next up, we got Gerald Everett. He's been solid all year. He's got, I think, a touchdown in both games, few catches. He's been like the guy. I mean, obviously Keenan Allen was out, but I think he can continue to get a decent amount of targets and receptions, and it'll be a hit or miss touchdown guy, but he could be a solid waiver wire tight end that you have on your team.
Yeah, and then the final waiver wire pickup, we were talking about the Colts earlier. That was our blowout of the week. Getting obliterated by the Jags. Michael Pittman being out was obviously a big part of that, but stepping in for him as their number one receiver, Ashton Dulin came in and he did pretty well. I think he looked good going forward. I think his performance is something that might warrant a bit more kind of attention in that offense. I think he might be someone who's going forward, regardless of Pittman's injury status. We should look to see a bit more involved, a bit more included in that offense. If Matt Ryan can start to pick things up, if we're assuming that these first 2 weeks aren't an indication of what he is going to be and what he just is now, then Doolin might be someone who you can rely on. And if Matt Ryan can return to some of the form that we've seen in, recent years, then Doolin's going to be the wide receiver 2 on a pretty solid offense and getting a decent amount of targets. And that's something that you can rely on. So definitely going forward, someone to look out for. He, can make a positive impact
Definitely on your
100% for
waiver.
your team. All right. So guess
Matchup.
now we're going to go into best matchups for our team. I touched on it a little bit earlier, but going with Captain Kirk Cousins up against the Detroit Lions. I feel good about this matchup against the Lions. We were talking about it earlier. They had a, real high scoring matchup against the Commanders this past week. And I think we should be looking for something similar this week. Granted, I think the Vikings are a better team than the Commanders overall. So there is the potential that maybe this is a bit more of, I am wary, I guess, of this being a blowout, maybe the game script being more focused towards the run, but Detroit's looked good. And I think Detroit offensively, DeAndre Swift, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Goff, is okay. They have an offensive line that's solid. They have, weapons and pieces around. Aiden Hutchinson looked really good against us. They have the pieces in place to, enough talent on that team to make that a competitive game. I think they can. And if they do, I think we should expect a big game out of Kirk Cousins. We saw it in week 1, not as much this past week, but we saw that he has the capability in a competitive game. He can be an efficient quarterback, get into the end zone, get a lot of yards. When Justin Jefferson's your number 1 target and you have Adam Thielen as the number 2, you can only do so poorly. And I think that going into this week, both of those guys, I would expect big weeks from them, and I would expect a big week from Kirk.
Yeah. So for me, I'm choosing the kicker, my kicker, Younghoe Koo. I think he's actually got a great matchup against Seattle this week, and he's definitely another guy that could be on your waivers. I think it could be a good pickup. I mean, the Falcons offense, they nearly came back against the Rams there on Sunday. They put up a decent showing in week 1 as well against the Saints. I think Koo will have another good game. I don't see why not. It should be decent. I mean, okay defenses there. I think Atlanta scores a bit. I think they get the win too. So I'd assume Koo gets at least a good 5 or 6 points. Something at least average, consistent. And yeah, as I said earlier, I don't have many other good matchups on my team this week. I'm banking on Koo this week. I'm banking on a 20 piece from him. A lot of field goals from the Falcons. Yeah.
All right, so I guess a little bit longer this week, but that is what we got for you. Next week, now I don't know, we'll try our best next week.
We'll try to keep it shorter, but we love talking. We're gonna have another guest.
Yeah, it was good. Glad we got a guest. We'll try to keep the guests consistent, try to get back to you next week. Yeah, felt like this one well. Good luck with your teams this week. I'm hoping to get back to a winning record. Jacob hoping to get
a win 1 and 2 after this week.
Record.
I'm telling you, 1 and 2. It's a lucky record.
Yeah, so we'll see and come back for the next episode to figure out how good or poorly we ended up doing. We'll see.
Yeah, and keep following us, Football with the Great American Youth. We'll see you next week. See you guys.
Yep.